When wealthy rancher Jeremiah Cross discovered his 12-year-old daughter Catherine could see perfectly, after 7 years of believing she was blind, he realized the devastating truth: she had been pretending all along, because she thought he only loved her when she appeared helpless. But as family secrets unraveled and business rivals circled like vultures, one question remained: what other truths had been hidden in the shadows of the Cross family ranch? Thunder crashed across the Montana sky as 12-year-old Catherine Cross sat perfectly still in her rocking chair, staring at nothing. The year was 1864, and her father's ranch stretched for miles under the stormy heavens. But Catherine couldn't see any of it, or so everyone believed. Jeremiah Cross stomped his muddy boots on the wooden porch, shaking rainwater from his black hat. His weathered hands counted gold coins from today's cattle sale. Business was good, very good. The ranch made him the richest man in 3 counties. But every time he looked at his daughter, his heart felt heavy as stone. "Catherine, are you cold?" he asked, walking into their grand living room. Oil paintings covered the walls. Expensive furniture filled every corner. Everything money could buy surrounded them. Yet something felt missing. The girl turned her head toward his voice, but her brown eyes seemed to look right through him. "No, Papa, I'm fine." Jeremiah sighed deeply. The scarlet fever had taken so much from her when she was just 5 years old. The doctor had warned him that her eyesight might never return. 7 long years had passed since then. 7 years of watching his bright, playful daughter become quiet and careful. "Would you like me to read to you?" he offered, picking up a leather book from the table. "That would be nice, Papa." As Jeremiah opened the book, he didn't notice Catherine's fingers moving slightly. She was tracing patterns on her dress letters and words she had secretly taught herself. Her head tilted just enough to see the pages he held, but she quickly looked away when he glanced up. Outside, lightning split the dark sky. The storm was getting worse, but inside the house, a different kind of storm was brewing. Catherine's secret was getting harder to keep. Every day, she had to remember to act blind. Every day, she had to pretend she couldn't see her father's sad face. Rain hammered against the windows as Jeremiah read about brave knights and distant kingdoms. His deep voice filled the room, but his mind wandered. Other ranchers had sons to help with the business. They had children who could ride horses and rope cattle. What would happen to everything he had built when he was gone? Catherine listened to the story, but her real attention was on her father's worried expression. She could see the lines around his eyes, the way his shoulders sagged. She wanted to tell him the truth, but fear held her back. What if he stopped being gentle with her? What if he became angry about her lies? The clock on the mantel chimed 9 times. "Time for bed, little one," Jeremiah said softly. Catherine stood up carefully, moving like someone who couldn't see. She felt along the wall with her hands, counting steps to her bedroom door. But in the hallway mirror, anyone watching closely might have noticed something strange. Her reflection showed a girl who knew exactly where she was going. Clara Henley scrubbed the breakfast dishes while watching Catherine through the kitchen window. The young Irish woman had worked for the Cross family for 3 months now, and something didn't feel right. Today's morning sun shone brightly across the ranch yard, making everything look fresh and clean after last night's storm. "Miss Catherine sure is good at finding things for someone who can't see," Clara whispered to herself. She dried her hands on her apron and walked outside. Catherine sat on the porch steps, holding her favorite corn-husk doll. The girl's face was turned toward the mountains, and Clara could swear she saw Catherine's eyes following a red-tailed hawk as it soared overhead. "Good morning, Miss Catherine," Clara called out, intentionally approaching from the side where Catherine couldn't hear her footsteps on the wet grass. Catherine's head turned immediately toward Clara's voice, but something was different. For just a moment, her eyes focused directly on Clara's face, before quickly looking away. "Oh, Clara, you surprised me," Catherine said, clutching her doll tighter. "I brought you some fresh milk and cookies," Clara offered, sitting down beside her. "Your father rode out early to check on the cattle in the north pasture." Catherine relaxed noticeably, when she heard her father was gone. Her shoulders dropped, and she seemed to breathe easier. "Thank you. The cookies smell wonderful." Clara watched carefully as Catherine reached for the glass of milk. The girl's hand went straight to it without feeling around first. No hesitation, no searching. Just a direct, confident movement. "Catherine," Clara said gently, "can you tell me about your doll?" The girl's fingers traced the doll's simple dress and yarn hair. "She's my best friend. I've had her since I was little, before I got sick." "What color is her dress?" Catherine froze. The question hung in the air like morning mist. After a long pause, she whispered, I don't remember colors very well anymore." But Clara had seen Catherine's eyes dart down to look at the doll's blue dress before she answered. The proof was right there, clear as the Montana sky. "Catherine," Clara said, moving closer, "it's all right if you want to tell me something. I won't repeat it to anyone." Tears began rolling down Catherine's cheeks. Her small hands shook as she held the doll. "You don't understand. Nobody understands. Try me," Clara said softly. Catherine looked around nervously, making sure they were completely alone. Then, for the first time in years, she looked directly into another person's eyes. Her gaze was sharp, focused, and very much aware. "I can see everything," she whispered. "The hawk flying over the barn, the way you braid your red hair, the worried look on Papa's face every morning. I see it all, Clara. I always have." Clara's heart raced. But why? Why pretend? Catherine's answer came out in a rush of words she had kept locked inside for so long. "Because Papa loves me more when he thinks I need him. When I was little and tried to run and play like other children, he would worry and tell me to be careful. But when I acted helpless, he would hold me and read to me and spend time with me." I thought being blind was the only way to keep him close. The truth hit Clara like cold mountain air. This little girl had given up 7 years of her life, trapped herself in darkness, just to feel loved by her father. But what would happen when Jeremiah Cross discovered his daughter's desperate deception? Clara's hands shook as she stood outside Mr. Cross's heavy oak door, knowing her next words might cost her the only job she'd found since arriving in Montana territory. The lamplight flickered under the doorframe, and she could hear him muttering over his business papers like he did every night since his wife died 3 years ago. She knocked twice, quick and sharp. "Mr. Cross, I need to tell you something important about Catherine." The muttering stopped. Chair legs scraped against wooden floors. When the door swung open, Jeremiah's tired eyes looked annoyed, like she'd interrupted something far more important than a servant's concerns. "What now, Miss Henley? Did she knock something over again?" Clara took a deep breath. "Sir, I don't think Catherine is blind at all." The words hung in the air, like smoke from a dying fire. Jeremiah's face went completely still. Then his eyebrows pulled together in a deep frown. "That's impossible. Dr. Williams examined her after the fever when she was 5 years old. The sickness damaged her eyes permanently. But I've been watching her for 3 months now," Clara pressed on, even though her heart was beating like a drum. "When she thinks nobody's looking, she walks straight to things without bumping into walls. She looks right at people's faces when they talk. Yesterday, I saw her pick up a penny from the floor without feeling around for it first." Jeremiah stepped back into his study, running his hand through his graying hair. "You're mistaken. Catherine bumps into furniture all the time. She needs help getting dressed. She can't even find her own hairbrush. Only when you're watching, sir." The words hit him like a slap. He turned around fast, his eyes flashing with anger and something else Clara couldn't quite name. Fear, maybe. "Are you suggesting my daughter has been lying to me for 7 years?" Clara's voice got smaller. "I'm suggesting maybe she learned to act blind, because that's what everyone expected." Jeremiah walked to his window, staring out at the dark fields where his cattle grazed under starlight. His reflection looked older than his 42 years, worn down by managing a ranch, raising a daughter alone, and fighting off business rivals who wanted his land. Dr. Williams is a respected man. He wouldn't make such a serious mistake. What if he didn't make a mistake? Clara asked quietly. What if Catherine's eyes healed, but nobody noticed because she kept acting the same way? The silence stretched between them like a rope pulled tight. Outside, an owl called to its mate, and somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled at the moon. Finally, Jeremiah turned around. His face looked like stone, but his voice shook just a little. Even if what you're saying is true, which I doubt, why would Catherine pretend such a thing? Clara thought about the lonely little girl who spent most days sitting by windows, about how her face lit up when her father paid attention to her struggles, about how quickly that light died when he walked away. Maybe you should ask her yourself, sir. Sleep wouldn't come to Jeremiah Cross that night, no matter how he tossed and turned in his big empty bed. Clara's words kept spinning in his head like leaves caught in a dust devil, and memories he'd buried deep started crawling back to the surface. He got up and walked barefoot down the hallway, stopping outside Catherine's bedroom door. Moonlight streamed through the window at the end of the hall, painting everything silver and strange. Through the thin walls, he could hear Catherine talking quietly to someone. I know you understand me, Patches, she whispered to her stuffed horse. I wish I could tell Father the truth, but he gets so worried when he thinks I might hurt myself. Remember last week when I tried to help with the dishes? He looked so scared. Jeremiah pressed his ear closer to the door, his heart hammering against his ribs. Sometimes I think about telling him I can see the mountains from my window, or that I watch him working with the horses every morning. But then he might stop checking on me so much. At least when he thinks I'm helpless, he remembers I exist. The words hit Jeremiah like a kick from an angry bull. He stumbled backward, memories flooding over him like water from a broken dam. He remembered Catherine at 6 years old, running toward him across the yard, her arms stretched wide. He'd caught her and spun her around, but then Dr. Williams had warned him about letting blind children move too freely. She could fall and hurt herself badly, the doctor had said. Best to keep her safe and still. So Jeremiah had started telling Catherine to slow down, to stay close, to let him help with everything. And slowly, week by week, month by month, his bright little girl had become quiet and careful, always waiting for his permission to move. But what if she hadn't needed his permission? What if she'd been able to see his face fall every time she stumbled? What if she'd learned that being helpless was the only way to keep his attention? Inside her room, Catherine had gone quiet. Jeremiah wondered if she'd heard his footsteps in the hallway, if she was lying there pretending to sleep while her heart raced with worry about being discovered. He thought about all the times he'd guided her hand to her fork at dinner, all the times he'd picked out her clothes because he thought she couldn't see colors, all the times he'd carried her when she claimed to be tired. Had she been watching his face during those moments, memorizing every line of worry and love? The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed midnight, its deep voice echoing through the house like a warning. Tomorrow, everything might change. If Clara was right, if Catherine really could see, then Jeremiah had spent 7 years solving the wrong problem. He'd been trying to protect a daughter who didn't need protecting. Instead, he'd created a prison made of his own fears, and somehow convinced his little girl that living behind bars was the only way to earn his love. The question that scared him most wasn't whether Catherine had been lying. It was whether he'd taught her that lying was better than the truth. Dust clouds rose from the road like angry ghosts as 3 riders charged toward the Cross Ranch. Catherine pressed her face against the cool glass window, watching the strangers approach with growing fear in her chest. Their horses moved fast and hard, kicking up dirt that looked like smoke in the morning Sunday. "Father!" she called out, forgetting for a moment to act blind. "Men are coming!" Jeremiah burst through the front door, his boots heavy on the wooden porch. His hand moved to the gun at his side as he recognized the lead rider. Wade Sullivan sat tall in his saddle, his black hat casting shadows over his mean eyes. 2 other men flanked him, one carrying a leather bag, the other with papers tucked under his arm. "Well, well, Cross," Sullivan called out as he dismounted. "Heard you've been having some troubles with that girl of yours." Catherine's stomach dropped. She had heard whispers in town when Clara took her to buy supplies. People talked about her father like he was weak. They said a man with a blind daughter couldn't run a proper business. Now Sullivan was here, and she could see the hunger in his eyes. "My family business is my own, Sullivan," Jeremiah replied, stepping down from the porch. His voice stayed calm, but Catherine could see his jaw tighten. Sullivan laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Not anymore, it ain't. See, I brought Dr. Mitchell here to examine your daughter. Make sure she's getting proper care." He gestured to the man with the bag. "And Mr. Peterson's got some legal papers you might find interesting." The lawyer stepped forward, unfolding documents. "Mr. Cross, we've received complaints about your ability to manage your affairs. A disabled child requires special attention that might be distracting from business matters." Catherine felt her heart pound like a drum in her chest. Through the window, she watched her father's face change. The color drained from his cheeks as he realized what was happening. Sullivan wasn't just visiting, he was trying to take everything away. "You can't be serious," Jeremiah said, his voice rising. "Catherine is well cared for. She has everything she needs." "Does she?" Sullivan's voice turned sharp. "When's the last time she saw a real doctor? When's the last time she left this ranch? That girl's been locked away like a shameful secret." Those words hit Catherine like a slap. She had been hiding, but not because her father was ashamed. She had been hiding because she thought he loved her more when she seemed helpless. Now she understood the terrible price of her lie. Clara appeared beside Catherine at the window, her green eyes wide with worry. "Miss Catherine, what are they saying?" "They want to take Father's ranch," Catherine whispered. "They think I'm a burden." Outside, the doctor opened his bag and pulled out strange metal instruments. "I'll need to examine the child immediately. If she's not receiving adequate medical attention, she's not some animal to be poked and prodded," Jeremiah snapped. Sullivan's smile was cold as winter wind. "Then you won't mind if we take a look for ourselves? After all, if there's nothing to hide." Catherine watched her father's shoulders slump slightly. She realized that her secret wasn't just hurting her anymore. It was destroying the man she loved most in the world. Catherine's hands shook as she reached for the door handle. Every step toward the porch felt like walking through deep mud. But she couldn't watch her father suffer for her lies anymore. The wooden door creaked as she pushed it open, and suddenly all eyes turned toward her. "Father," she said, her voice clear as mountain water, "who are these men?" The silence that followed was so complete that Catherine could hear a hawk crying somewhere in the distance. Dr. Mitchell's medical bag slipped from his fingers and hit the ground with a dull thud. Mr. Peterson's legal papers scattered in the breeze like autumn leaves. Sullivan's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. But she's... "I can see just fine, thank you," Catherine said, looking directly at Sullivan. She had never felt so scared and so brave at the same time. "I've been able to see my whole life." Jeremiah turned to stare at his daughter, and Catherine saw something break behind his eyes. It wasn't anger. It was pain deeper than any physical wound. "Catherine?" His voice came out cracked and small. "You've been... all these years?" She nodded, tears starting to blur her vision, the vision she had hidden for so long. "I'm sorry, Father. I thought you only loved me when I needed help." From inside the house, Clara gasped. She had suspected the truth, but hearing it spoken out loud still shocked her. The young maid stepped onto the porch, her loyalty to the Cross family stronger than her fear of the strangers. Sullivan recovered first, his surprise turning into something uglier. "Well, this changes everything, doesn't it? Fraud, deception, lying to doctors and lawyers." His voice grew louder with each word. "This makes things even worse for you, Cross." But Jeremiah wasn't listening to Sullivan anymore. His entire world had shifted in the span of a heartbeat. The daughter he thought he was protecting had been protecting herself from him. "Why?" he whispered, stepping closer to Catherine. "Why would you pretend such a thing?" Catherine's tears flowed freely now. "Because when I got sick with the fever, Everyone said I was brave and special. But you only seemed to notice me when you thought I was broken. When I tried to run and play, you told me to be careful, to stay still. I thought being blind was the only way to keep you close." Dr. Mitchell picked up his bag, shaking his head. "This is highly irregular. A child pretending to have a disability. Get off my land." Jeremiah's voice was quiet, but deadly. He didn't take his eyes off Catherine as he spoke. "All of you, now," Sullivan sputtered. "You can't just dismiss us. This fraud changes everything about your business dealings." I said, "Get off my land." This time, Jeremiah's hand moved to his gun. "And if I see you near my family again, we'll have a different kind of conversation." The three men climbed back on their horses, Sullivan's face red with anger. "This isn't over, Cross. The whole territory will hear about this." As the riders disappeared in their own dust cloud, father and daughter stood facing each other on the porch. 7 years of lies hung between them like an invisible wall. But for the first time in memory, Catherine was looking directly into her father's eyes. Clara quietly stepped back inside, knowing this moment belonged to them alone. The morning sun blazed through Catherine's bedroom window as she threw off her covers and jumped to her feet, something she hadn't done in front of her father for 7 long years. Today felt different. Today, she would show him everything she had been hiding. "Father!" she called down the hallway, her voice stronger than it had been since she was 5 years old. "Come quick! Something's wrong with the horses." Jeremiah rushed from his study, expecting to find his daughter stumbling around in confusion. Instead, he stopped dead in his tracks. Catherine stood at the top of the stairs, looking directly at him with eyes that sparkled with life and mischief. "The black mare is limping badly," she said, already heading toward the front door. "I can see it from my window. She's favoring her left front leg." Outside, they walked together toward the stable. For the first time in years, Jeremiah watched his daughter move with purpose and confidence. She didn't bump into fence posts or feel around with her hands. She simply walked like any normal child would. "How long have you been able to see the horses from your room?" he asked quietly. Catherine's cheeks turned pink. "Always, father. I've watched you work with them every morning. I know which ones are your favorites, and which ones get scared during thunderstorms." At the stable, Catherine proved she knew every horse by name. She pointed to the injured mare and explained exactly what she had observed. The horse had indeed hurt her leg, and Catherine's quick eyes had spotted the problem before anyone else. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Jeremiah knelt down to his daughter's level. "All these years, I thought you needed constant help. Because you were gentler with me when you thought I was blind," Catherine whispered, tears forming in her eyes. "After Mother died, you became so busy and worried all the time. But when you believed I couldn't see, you would sit with me and read stories. You would hold my hand during thunderstorms." Jeremiah felt his heart breaking into 1,000 pieces. His own daughter had pretended to be disabled just to spend time with him. What kind of father had he become? "I'm sorry," he said, pulling her into his arms. "I should have been a better father, whether you could see or not." As they hugged, Clara appeared from the house, carrying a basket of fresh eggs. She smiled when she saw father and daughter finally talking openly. "Miss Catherine helped me spot the sick chickens yesterday too," Clara said. "She has the sharpest eyes on the whole ranch." That afternoon, Jeremiah made a decision that would change everything. He took Catherine into town with him, something he hadn't done in years. People stared in amazement as the girl everyone thought was blind walked confidently beside her father, pointing out interesting things in store windows. But their peaceful day was about to take a dangerous turn. 3 months later, spring had brought new challenges to the Cross Ranch, and Catherine was facing her biggest test yet. A group of cattle rustlers had been stealing animals from neighboring farms, and today they had come for Jeremiah's prize bulls. "Stay in the house," Jeremiah ordered as he grabbed his rifle. "This could get dangerous." But Catherine had other plans. From her bedroom window, she could see things her father couldn't. The rustlers weren't just after cattle, they were surrounding the house too. "Clara," she whispered urgently. "Get down low and follow me. I can see a way out that Father doesn't know about." The two of them crept through the house like shadows. Catherine's keen eyesight helped them avoid the creaking floorboards and stay hidden from the windows. They slipped out through the root cellar and made their way to the neighbor's ranch to get help. "How did you know which path to take in the dark?" Clara asked, as they ran across the moonlit fields. "I've been watching and memorizing every trail on this land for years," Catherine panted. "Father never knew I was learning the ranch better than anyone." When they returned with Sheriff McKinnon and 6 other men, they found Jeremiah trapped in the barn, surrounded by 4 armed rustlers. The criminals had no idea they were about to be surprised. Catherine climbed up into the hayloft, while the men surrounded the barn below. From her high perch, she could see exactly where each rustler was hiding. She dropped small pebbles to signal their locations to the sheriff and his men below. "There's one behind the water trough," she whispered down to Sheriff McKinnon. "Another one is crouched beside the feed bins." Her information helped the lawmen capture all 4 rustlers without a single shot being fired. Jeremiah emerged from the barn, amazed and proud. "You saved my life," he told Catherine, as the criminals were loaded into the sheriff's wagon. "Your eyes and your courage saved us all." That evening, as they sat together on the front porch watching the sun set, Jeremiah realized something important. His daughter wasn't just pretending to be normal, she was extraordinary. Her years of careful observation had made her more aware of their surroundings than anyone else on the ranch. "I have an idea," he said, putting his arm around her shoulders. "How would you like to be my official partner in running this ranch? I could use someone with eyes as sharp as yours." Catherine's smile could have lit up the entire Montana territory. For the first time in her life, she felt truly valued for who she really was. "Yes, Father," she said, looking directly into his eyes. "I'd like that very much." As the stars began to twinkle overhead, 3 people sat together on the porch. A father who had learned to see clearly, a daughter who had found the courage to be herself, and a loyal friend who had helped bring them together. The Cross Ranch had never been stronger.